Okay. Uh, I'm recording this a few days after because I wanted to get my thoughts like all lined up on this, and I have two minds about the new Pokemon game. So okay, so let me just start from the beginning. I have attempted to finish Legends Arceus several times. I have gotten halfway through it. I'm currently on a new playthrough of it. I probably should actually stream a little bit of it today, trying to get a little bit further into it. But I I also feel like there is this slight level of disconnect between my my thoughts on it and several other people's thoughts on it. So, is the game good? I honestly feel like that the game is serviceable, not amazing. I feel like that there are certain problems with the game that needed ironing out, and I feel like that they attempted to by the time that Scarlet and Violet came out with their systems, but Scarlet and Violet is hard to talk about for the same measure, mostly because it has that like level of it has that level of having like a lot of technical problems with it. Now, I'm not gonna say that uh Legends ZA is going to fail. I'm not gonna say that it's gonna fail because Arceus did not do as well. I'm gonna say that the reason why the game might fail is because at the end of the day, the game presented itself as actually being a little boring. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? When you look at the trailer for ZA, there's one thing that comes to mind when I see a game like that. And that is the pervasive thought in my head that what I am looking at is not its full potential. And I've thought about this for several Pokemon games now, where it's like, oh man, I hope they actually get like all their ducks in a row, so the game when it comes out is the best that it can possibly be. But yeah, I've thought about that for the last few games. Uh, one of the reasons why I effectively stopped my playthrough of Scarlet and Violet was because I felt like the game was relatively too slow of an experience. I felt that it was kind of weird to play the game, even though the game is inherently fun and has one of the best storylines of any Pokemon game in a while. It's up there. I really enjoy the storyline. I think the real problem that I was having with Legends Arceus though is the same problem I have with a lot of other recent open world style games where it is sparse story separated by tons of wandering. This comes all the way back to Tears of the Kingdom when I played that game. And when I finally finished that game, I lamented the fact that uh, that it was not fully the game that I wanted. There were some story writing decisions that honestly like could have gotten fixed if it was made differently. And there were certain story ideas that were not told right because of its open world nature. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. A lot of people don't want to hear this game was lackluster, not because it was bad, but because it was told wrong. Like, no one wants to hear that about a new game that they're very passionate about. But like I said before, playing through Tears of the Kingdom was amazing. I just wish that it was better. And I didn't really understand why people were upset about it in the like shortly after the game came out, but now that I've had to sit on that game for a while, it really does fall into this weird line of thinking where the game just does not feel right. It feels like that there was a lot more that they could have done. Uh, a lot, a lot more they could have done with the game, but just didn't. And when I was thinking about where exactly ZA needs to go to be good, I realized that this is only partially that I'm partially getting the question wrong, you know? Because the question is not will ZA be a fun game? And the answer is yes. Of course the game's going to be fun. The real question that is on my mind is will ZA have a sizable uh, impact when it comes out to make modern perceptions of Pokemon games shift. Because let me just list it off in this order. So you have uh, Sword and Shield comes out, and you have this whole thing with like the decks and people not liking the fact that all the Pokemon are not in the game, and that's one thing. You know, it's like you can be upset at them for yeah, you could be upset at them for making this decision for supposedly competitive reasons that I don't think was taken well by anybody. You then have a Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, which feels actually no. It would then be Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which I really enjoyed, but a lot of people felt that the game was incredibly watered down just so that they can have this a similar vibe to how the Go games feel. And I partially agree with the sentiment that the game did not do enough to pull in old fans, but it did good enough to keep on new fans. Like it was enough to bring on like kids that have never played the first few games and give them an experience that is significantly different than if they just pulled up an emulator of the Game Boy and started playing it there, like it's a fundamentally different experience that will make people be interested in the series again. And that's what I enjoyed about it. It was a new, neat, different experience. Unfortunately, a lot of people did not see it that way and got really frustrated with the mechanics of the game and how the game overall felt to play, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with them having those gripes, but I never really had those in the first place. As time went on, though, I could kind of understand where they're coming from when they say things like, this is not what I would want in a Pokemon game. I want the game to be a lot more high-end. You then have uh, Legends Arceus come out, which is which is a furthering of the open world design from the wild areas in Sword and Shield. And Sword and Shield by itself was okay. I feel like that there was a lot of mediocreness to some of the aspects of the game, but it did not disappoint me like it did for other people. When Legends Arceus came out, I was thoroughly enjoying it, but I suddenly dropped off sometime around Area 3 because it was just too little story for me. And I've always enjoyed games because of the story of them. You know, it's one of the things that I really enjoy showing people about games is the stories that they tell. Like some of my favorite games of all time are games solely because of their story, not really so much because I like playing them over and over again. It's one of the reasons why I'm having an issue with one of my recordings because I like the game. I just don't I just don't feel like replaying it is giving me anything, so I'm getting like a weird sense of like some like weird mixed feelings from it, which really does reevaluate how I feel about the game to an extent. But it's some of those necessary things you need to know if you're trying to figure out what is your favorite game of all time. You then have Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I have a copy of the game. I never really booted it up. Or, no, I did. I just never played too much of it. I never devoted too much time into even, like, figuring out if I would like the game. Because there's just too much about, uh, because what I actually like is I don't really like Diamond and Pearl. I like Platinum. Platinum is one of my favorite Pokemon games. And for it to be mostly Diamond and Pearl with a few changes, I did not like it as much. So I eventually just set it down and forgot about it. And then you have Scarlet and Violet, which uh, comes out incredibly hot. It does not do itself any favors when it's a broken mess on one of the most important aspects about the game, which is the multiplayer. Because again, most of the bugs and issues had to do with multiplayer connectivity stuff. And when people would connect up their games and like leave the games on for a long period of time, which again, if you're playing a multiplayer game, that is bound to happen. You want to play with other people. And it really does make me think that Pokemon is in this weird rut of mediocrity that is not garnering them any favors. And so I would have liked them to have this put out a new game that was a small experience, that was a delight to play, and had a nice little storyline with it. And I got that. It's called, new Pokemon Snap. It's it is a fun little experience that I enjoyed my first time. I never actually finished it on stream. I should actually probably go back and do that on a fresh save. But it was a fun little experience. I loved it. But like when I think about like my favorite Pokemon games, I think of Platinum because of Cyrus's story. I liked hanging out with Cynthia in that game and all that kind of stuff. Like another one of my favorite Pokemon games is Mystery Dungeon, which I still need to finish Mystery Dungeon Deluxe as well. But I ran into the same problem where I was having a fun experience with the game. I just wasn't having a fun time going through the game again. But when we got to the story bit that I thoroughly enjoyed, like that was amazing to me. I loved going through that again. Like it's so hard to figure out like how much of what I'm even saying right now is me lamenting the fact that Pokemon is not as good anymore, and how much of it is honestly wondering if Legends if the Legends branding is where they really need to go. For instance, when we are talking about Legends, I think of the core gameplay loop of, hey, I'm going to walk off into here, I'm going to go off into this wild area, and I'm going to find a Pokemon. I'm going to sneak up to it, I'm going to attempt to catch it. It's a little bit too rowdy or too high of level, so I have to fight it. Once I'm done fighting it, I will then attempt to capture it, and the normal capturing mechanics go off. But the real-time battle and the running around the environment to find Pokemon in your area is the fun part. That is the core gameplay of it. And so we see Legends Arceus, and it's uh, I want to say sort of like mellow vibe to it. And you then go on to and then you look at any of the gameplay for ZA, and you go, oh, okay, so it's just this again. But then I feel bad because I don't want to just say, oh, it's this again, like it's a bad thing. Because I don't see it as a bad thing. I know certain people out there that do see it as a bad thing, uh, who kind of see all of the Legends branding as not very good for Pokemon. Like, I have seen those people. I know that they exist, but I don't feel like the problem really is with like the real-time battling. I don't feel like it's particularly with I don't feel like it's particularly with the real-time battling. I don't feel like it's with the story with it. I don't really feel like it's even with the overall battling mechanics because I actually really like the agile, uh, powerful, I think is the other one, where you have the two styles. And doing that augments your types of attack. I loved that. I really liked it because it had this sort of this tactical dynamic with your characters. And sure, you're never going to be able to do that in multiplayer. But do you know what I say? I say that I understand that Pokemon from the very beginning has always had this competitive multiplayer aspect to it. I don't care. I like personal um, personal experiences made for one player. That's the type of game that I've always enjoyed, and guess what? That's the type of experience that I've always gotten out of Pokemon. Is this sort of solitary exploration where I, as a player, am running around an area by myself, capturing Pokemon, and then showing it off to a friend. Like, if that's not the essence of Pokemon, then what is? So it makes me wonder, what is it about the Legends branding that makes me so worried about Pokemon? And I honestly think it comes from the overall feeling that I get from modern what was it called? More modern, like, open world games. Because when I see Pokemon, I understand that an open world would actually be very useful because it makes you feel a lot more immersed in the world. It makes you feel a lot closer to the world of Pokemon as a whole. But at the same time, I also know that if you don't do it right, then it doesn't feel right. And that should sound normal, but at the same time, I also completely understand when someone comes up and says, hey, the reason why I don't like Legends Arceus is because that's not the style of game that I go for. And we could then have a conversation about, well, this is the type of game that I go for. And the cool thing about Pokemon as a series is that you can get many different types of experiences from many different types of players playing many different types of ways. And in a way, I feel Pokemon almost catering to the way that I like to play feels wrong. It shouldn't just cater to me, it should cater to everyone that plays. But then at the same time, I know that that's an incredibly weird thing to say. Like, why wouldn't I want a game that I am playing to like the way that I play it? Or want me to play it in the way that I normally play it? It it comes off as this weird, like, mental state where I feel like that I'm losing out on an aspect of a game that I don't even really play that aspect of the game that way. And so it hurts. It hurts for me to say it feels weird that a game is catering to me. Because it's losing the essence of the other parts of it that were always in the side. You know, it's like, and sometimes I do wonder if it is mostly just me. You know, it's like I do wonder how much of this is me just like blowing this like all out of proportion and like thinking way too hard about this. But I also know that there are people out there that don't want to play ZA because of hangups on their end of things. And it really does come down to my rampant empathy for other people that make me just go, oh, okay, so I'm since I'm getting something out of this, someone is losing something out of this. And that's I I don't want to use that particular wording, but but it's the only real like word in English that is coming to my mind where I feel dirty accepting a game that is made for me when other people are losing out. And I know that that is not a that's such a weird thing to say. It's so weird for me to sit here and go like, I feel bad that I am being catered to. But I do wonder if that really does come from a feeling of how much how much of this series am, is being lost because they're deciding to orient their new game to players like me. Why can't why can't they just always make the same game over and over again? And this is a topic that I have like a lot of arguments about with people where you can't just play the same game over and over again. You have to deviate. You have to actually like come up with new ideas every once in a while. And like I particularly get into this argument when I talk about something like Star Fox, you know. And again, all these games I'm talking about right now are all within Nintendo's ecosystem, where and all three of these are long-running series that have done one particular thing. They have changed up their formula from their very first start. Like Star Fox changed into Assault. Star Fox Assault is still one of my favorite like Star Fox games. And then for their next game to just be we did Star Fox 1 again. It feels wrong because they have what is it? They have Star Fox 1 and then it's 64 and then it's Command and then it's 0 and all four of those games are exactly the same game. Almost down to like the paths and the storylines and all that kind of stuff. And I appreciated that Zero changed some things up so it doesn't feel like that, but it still is. It's still the same game over and over again. And again, it makes me feel dirty to accept something where a game is now different. And it could be that the game is now oriented towards people like me, but what if I don't want that? What if I personally feel like they have lost something on their way to cater to me as a person? Again, this is all my like as one friend called it, my rampant empathy for others that made me immediately disconnect with certain games. Like I I even talked to someone that I might actually make another video about my like another rambly video about, but I'm pretty sure that the next Zelda game, like big title Zelda game, is going to be the final open world Zelda game, and hopefully they just shake that out of their system. So they don't have to go through another they don't have to feel like that they're only able to make open world games, but I would like them to take that open world feeling and apply it to other games. Like imagine if okay, that's gonna be a whole nother story. But when it comes to like ZA, I see things like, okay, so you go over here, like there's footage of the character going up to a building, going into the building, they are now on top of the building. and then them transferring from one rooftop to another by like a little parkour segment. And I do wonder how much of that is scripted. I wonder if you're going to be able to jump between roofs. And that's fun. I like doing that. It's one of the things I really liked about Assassin's Creed is exploring all the nooks and crannies of the entire city. That's going to be really fun. I know that people are going to hate it though. I know that people are going to sit there going like what is it's like what is this? Why am I running around this like empty space? It's like what is it's like why is this so boring? I I don't know how I'm gonna feel about ZA in a few days. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it when the game finally comes out. But what I will say is I am probably gonna pick it up. I'm probably gonna play it on, if not day one, maybe like day like two or three. But the one thing that I am worried about is much like Legends Arceus, how long will it take before I get bored of the game? I don't want to feel like I get bored of the game. I don't want to have those experiences. I want to play a game. I want to thoroughly enjoy the game, and then I want to leave with like a sigh going, "Man, I wish there was more to do." Because I want to have those kind of game experiences again, where I feel like that there was just so much in the game to do that I didn't do all of them. The last like open world game that really made me feel that way was uh last year's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I've talked about this before. Rebirth, like Final Fantasy VII is not my favorite Final Fantasy game. I am actually like particularly hard on Final Fantasy VII, but transferring it into this modern open world game experience opened up something in the game and really made me appreciate the world that it's in. Like, I started to enjoy the characters a lot more than I normally did. And again, I could go into this like a whole nother topic for later, but when I played the first game, when I played Remake, I did not expect to enjoy that game as much as I did. And for Rebirth to capture my entire attention for days upon days, to the point where I would rush home from lunch break so I could do like two more quick battles and then rush back to work. Like that was a game that captured my thoughts for several days, to the point where when I finished the game, I was disappointed that I didn't have more to do. Like that's the type of feeling that I want in games. And I sat there after the game and I said, well, if this isn't my game of the year, the thing that is going to be really good is something that makes me smile the whole time I'm playing it. Turns out that the game that was my game of the year for that year was a game that made me feel depressed afterwards, but hey, that's beside the point. So, when I see a game like ZA and I get worried, I do wonder how much of it is, am I going to just give up on this game like I did Legends Arceus when it first came out? And that thought makes me sad, you know? It makes me wonder it makes me wonder if the game is going to have that sort of feeling when it's eventually over. Is I will I have a feeling that I just wasted my time on a subpar game when I could have been playing something that was far better? and then wishing that the game was more like that. I don't know. It always feels bad to demand more of a game when the game was never trying to be that. I guess wrapping up some of my thoughts on ZA is that I would be cautious going into it. I would look at it like, okay, is this a fad? And is the Pokemon Company going to grow out of this? You know, like how it feels like uh how it feels the team behind Zelda is slowly growing out of the open world mechanics. Personally, I would hope that the answer is the thing that I suggested, which is taking aspects about the open world nature and moving it into other things, but not have it be this boring open world experience the whole time. Again, for Zelda's part of this, there will be another video about that, but I can't help but feel like that at the end of the day, that I'm going to make myself so reluctant to enjoy it that I end up not enjoying it. You know, if that makes sense. This whole idea of am I going to curse myself into not liking it solely because I don't want to like it, or I'm so worried about not liking it, I end up manifesting that bad energy. I don't know. I It's so hard to tell sometimes, especially with more modern games. But yeah. Uh so wrapping up those thoughts, I feel like ZA is going to be this 8 out of 10 experience. It's going to be passable, it's going to be great. It's not going to be something to write home about. And people will always say that there is a Pokemon game out there that is their 10 out of 10. And Pokemon can get back up to that 9 or 10 out of 10 range. But until then, it's going to just sit in that like this high 7 low 8 range that it's been in since arguably even 5th gen. And I don't think that they're going to make their way back out of it. I want them to. I'm just worried that I'm sort of manifesting that bad energy into me not enjoying it. So let me know what you think. I'm probably just overthinking all of this, but just let me know what you think.